There's a slightly different dynamic in the legislature this year with a power shift in November that gave Democrats in the Senate a majority. So now that Democrats control both chambers and the governor's office, are you noticing some changes in proposed policies?
There is a little bit, John, that's going on down here. I think that even though it's only a one-vote difference in the Senate, you do have both the House and the Senate chamber Democrat. You've got the governor's office Democrat. Right out of the chutes, we're seeing a statewide sugar tax, like they did with the pop tax in downtown Seattle, which, by the way, would double the cost of a case of your favorite soda or Gatorade. You've got a $3+ billion carbon tax that the governor has proposed. You've got just a number of different gun restrictions that have come up, many things that have not seen the light of day in the last few years that are coming forward. And so I understand there's definitely some ideological differences, but it's still virtually a 50-50 split, meaning that half the state voted for Democrats, half the state voted for Republicans. The Democrats coined the phrase several years ago, "One Washington." Prove it. Let's make sure that the policies and the tax incentives and taxes that you're talking about are serving the whole state, not just your part of the state.
During a news conference following the State of the State address, you said the governor's energy tax is, quote, extremely tax heavy and policy short. What did you mean by that?
The policy that the governor is moving forward on, as I touched on, overall it's about a $3+ billion tax increase to the public. Now stop and think about that for a second. We've got a little over 7 million people in the state of Washington, and the taxes we're talking about are specifically as it relates to, for example, your gas tax. We have a gas tax. We have actually one of the highest gas taxes in the country, but the gas tax that's being collected is being used for transportation purposes. This would be adding another 20 cents per gallon on every type of fuel you purchase, diesel, gasoline, and guess what? None of it even goes towards transportation. None of it, not one penny of it goes towards transportation. The other thing too is things like natural gas. It's about an 11% increase in your natural gas usage. It's about a 5% increase at minimum in your utility bills. So people will say, well, I can swallow that. Well, you may think you can, but when it comes to especially the middle class and our lesser affluent folks in the state, think about what that's going to do to your cost of other goods. All your manufacturing prices go up, your shipping prices go up, your labor prices go up, and at the next thing you know it, your cost of living all of a sudden increases when you start adding all of this up. And so, the middle class especially, they're the ones that will be hit the hardest with all of this.
During his State of the State address, Governor Inslee said nothing about fixing the Hearst water decision, but he encouraged passage of the capital budget. What's the latest on these two issues?
Well, first of all, it's very unfortunate that he didn't at least mention it, because it is, in my time down here and every legislator I've spoken with, it's probably the worst property rights issue we've ever faced. What is your property worth if you don't have water on it? Not much, maybe 10 cents on the dollar. And under his proposals, or the proposals that are being talked about down here right now, they're saying that it's okay for government to build projects, for example, a school, which is a good thing, okay? But for the people who live in that same district, maybe even across the street from where the school is being constructed, they can't hook up to a well. So we're saying it's okay for government to have access to water wherever they want, but the citizens who, by the way, let's remind everybody, they're the ones paying for the school. If you live in that same neighborhood or want to, you can't hook up to the same water source that the school's hooking up to. That's just wrong. And under our Constitution, it says in our Constitution that water is a natural resource owned by the citizens of the state of Washington. It's just not right. And so we want to make sure that this Hearst decision and the legislation we're working on there is taken care of properly so that people around the state of Washington have access to water in an equal fashion as to what government has been able to do.
And Hearst first and then capital budget?
Absolutely, yes. We want to make sure, because we've had some history with this governor making some agreements with us only to have him veto them later. We're saying, let's get this Hearst thing fixed first, have you sign it, Mr. Governor, and then we're happy to go ahead and pass through the capital budget.
We have 60 days, legislative session. How do viewers get a hold of you? How do they participate? How do they get involved?
Let me remind everybody that I can't do my job without input. I need input from folks back home that are dealing with the realities of what's happening in their lives, their businesses, their homes, and the like. And so at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see my email address, my contact phone number, and the such. And again, we have kind of a motto down here in Olympia, and it's that silence is agreement. And I'm just telling you, don't be silent. Just be, but oftentimes people will say, well, I'm not hearing anything bad. Well, oftentimes that's because people haven't told us what's really going on. We need to hear from you. I look forward to hearing from folks back home and trying to serve them to the best of my ability.